Dr. Andrea Thompson's hands froze mid-scrub as the emergency team wheeled in the latest trauma patient. There, bloodied and unconscious on the gurney, lay Oakley Reynolds, the woman who had once been her everything, the secret love she'd sacrificed years ago for the sake of her career and family expectations. The lights buzzed overhead in the bustling Chicago hospital, but for Andrea, time stopped. Patient is 28-year-old female, car accident, multiple fractures, internal bleeding suspected. The paramedic rattled off, but Andrea barely heard. Her heart pounded as she stared at the familiar face, the one she'd kissed goodbye in tears 5 years earlier, promising it was for the best. Now, as the lead surgeon on night shift at St. Mary's Medical Center, she had to save the life of the woman she'd betrayed. The team moved fast, transferring Oakley to the table, cutting away her clothes to reveal the extent of the damage: broken ribs, a lacerated spleen, and a shattered femur. Andrea's mind raced through protocol, but her chest tightened with memories she had buried deep. They had met in undergrad at Northwestern, two ambitious girls bonding over late-night study sessions that turned into stolen kisses in the library stacks. Oakley had been the bold one, the art major who dreamed of opening a gallery, while Andrea chased the prestige of medicine. Their love had felt invincible until Andrea's conservative parents found out. "This isn't who we raised you to be," her mother had hissed over the phone from their suburban home in Naperville. "Think of your future. Hospitals don't hire people with that kind of reputation." The pressure built for months, culminating in Andrea's cold breakup text that shattered Oakley. "I can't do this anymore. It's too hard." She had chosen the safe path, dated a male resident briefly to appease her family, and climbed the surgical ladder. But standing here now, scalpel in hand, the guilt hit like a freight train. "Dr. Thompson, vitals are crashing," Nurse Ramirez called out, snapping her back. Andrea blinked hard, forcing her voice steady. "We're going in. Prep for exploratory laparotomy." She couldn't step down, not with Oakley's blood pressure plummeting and no other senior surgeon on call at 2 a.m. Ethics be damned. This was life or death. As she made the first incision, her hands trembled just enough for the resident to notice. "You okay, Doc?" he asked. "Fine," she lied, diving into the procedure while flashbacks flooded her. Lazy Sundays in Oakley's tiny apartment, laughing over cheap wine, whispering promises of forever. Those promises had died the day Andrea chose silence over truth. Now, with Oakley's life literally in her hands, the question burned. Could she save her without destroying what little remained of her own carefully constructed world? The surgery stretched on, every stitch a reminder of the woman she had abandoned. By the time they closed the abdomen, Andrea's scrubs were soaked with sweat, not just from the heat of the lights. She stepped back, watching the monitor stabilize, but her mind screamed one truth. This night was only the beginning of the storm. The team wheeled Oakley to recovery, and Andrea peeled off her gloves, heart still racing. She had done it, saved the ex she had ghosted. But as she glanced at the chart, the name Oakley Reynolds stared back like an accusation. What would happen when Oakley woke up? What would her own family say if they ever found out? The hospital's zero-tolerance policy on personal conflicts loomed large. Andrea slipped into the on-call room, sinking onto the cot, replaying every choice that had led her here. The clock ticked toward dawn, but sleep wouldn't come. This wasn't just a medical emergency. It was the past crashing into her present, demanding payment for every lie she had told herself to survive. Andrea paced the recovery room corridor, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows that mirrored the turmoil inside her. Oakley's surgery had been a success on paper. Bleeding controlled, fractures stabilized, but the real battle was just starting. She checked the chart again, noting the pain meds and the expected wake-up window. Part of her wanted to hide in the staff lounge, pretend this was any other patient. The other part, the one that still ached for the girl who used to trace hearts on her palm during lectures, needed to see those eyes open. "Dr. Thompson, family is here for the patient," a nurse interrupted. Andrea's stomach dropped. Oakley's parents? Or worse, someone who knew their history. She steeled herself and headed to the waiting area. There, pacing like caged animals, were Oakley's mother and sister. Faces she recognized from old photos Oakley had shown her during their secret weekends away. "We're looking for updates on Oakley Reynolds," the mother said, voice tight with worry. Andrea introduced herself professionally, explaining the procedure in clinical terms, but inside she was fracturing. These were the people who had never known about her, the relationship hidden even from them because Oakley feared their traditional views on alternative lifestyles. Now here Andrea stood, the surgeon who had once held their daughter in ways no one else knew. "Will she be okay?" the sister asked, eyes pleading. "She's stable, but recovery will be long," Andrea replied, her voice cracking slightly. She excused herself quickly, retreating to the nurse's station where Ramirez eyed her curiously. "You seem off tonight." Personal connection. The question hung like a trap. Andrea shook her head. "Just a tough case." But the lie tasted bitter, echoing the bigger one she had lived for 5 years. Alone in the dim break room, flashbacks consumed her again. Their first real date, a hidden picnic in Lincoln Park. Oakley laughing as she fed Andrea strawberries, whispering, "I don't care what the world thinks, we're forever." Then the fallout. Andrea's father, a prominent lawyer, had threatened to pull funding for her med school loans if she didn't straighten out. She had caved, sending that final message, "Don't contact me again." This was a mistake. Oakley had responded with a single text full of pain. "You promised." The betrayal still stung Andrea more than she admitted. Now, with Oakley fighting for life because of a drunk driver on the Kennedy Expressway, Andrea wondered if fate was punishing her. She pulled out her phone, scrolling old photos she had never deleted, encrypted in a hidden folder. Oakley's smile, their intertwined hands. The guilt twisted deeper. By morning, the hospital buzzed with shift change. Andrea signed off on the case but lingered, watching from the glass window as Oakley stirred. Those green eyes fluttered open, hazy from anesthesia, locking onto Andrea's face across the room. Recognition hit like lightning. Oakley's expression shifted from confusion to raw hurt, lips forming a silent word. "You." Andrea's world tilted. She had to go in, explain. But the hospital administrator was already paging her for a mandatory review. "Dr. Thompson, we need to discuss potential conflict of interest." The noose tightened. Andrea stepped into the room anyway, heart hammering. "Oakley, I'm so sorry." The words felt inadequate, but they were the first honest ones in years. Oakley's weak voice cut through. "You left me bleeding on the inside back then. Now you're the one stitching me up." The confrontation had begun, and Andrea knew one wrong word could end her career, or finally free her soul. The day dragged with paperwork and whispered hallway talks. Colleagues speculated. Why had the night surgeon taken such a personal case? Andrea dodged questions, but inside the pressure mounted. Her mother's text arrived mid-afternoon. "Heard about a big case. Don't let anything distract you, honey. Remember what we discussed. The family code. Stay straight, stay safe, stay successful." Andrea deleted it, but the words lingered. Oakley was resting now, but the next conversation would demand truth. Andrea sat in her office, staring at the diploma on the wall, the one she had earned by sacrificing the only real love she had known. Was saving Oakley worth risking the life she had built? The internal war raged on, each heartbeat a reminder that decisions from the past were now bleeding into the present. Oakley shifted in the hospital bed, for lines tugging at her arm as the pain meds wore off enough for clarity. Andrea stood at the foot of the bed, clipboard in hand like a shield, but her eyes betrayed the storm. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Oakley rasped, her voice hoarse from the tube that had been in her throat. "Maybe I have. The one who vanished." Andrea swallowed hard, closing the door for privacy. "I never wanted it to end like that. My family." The pressure was crushing. "I thought I was protecting us both." Oakley laughed bitterly, wincing at the rib pain. "Protecting yourself, you mean? I waited for months, Andrea. Called, texted, showed up at your dorm. You blocked me like I was nothing." The words sliced deeper than any scalpel. Andrea pulled up a chair, voice low. "I was scared. Being us in this world, it's not easy. My dad threatened everything. I chose medicine because it was the only thing I could control." Their conversation spilled into the afternoon, a mix of accusations and reluctant confessions. Oakley revealed the crash wasn't random. She had been driving after a bad night, thoughts of Andrea haunting her even after all these years. "I built a life without you. Gallery opening next month, but seeing you here? It rips everything open again." Andrea's hands clenched the bed rail. I still care. More than I should admit. The admission hung heavy, laced with the societal weight they both knew too well. Nurses knocked intermittently, forcing them to switch to polite doctor-patient talk, but the undercurrent pulsed. Andrea's pager buzzed. Ethics committee wanting a meeting. Rumors were spreading. Someone had seen her lingering too long in recovery. That evening, as visitors left, Oakley's sister pulled Andrea aside in the hallway. Oakley mentioned you two knew each other in school. She never said how. The suspicion in her tone mirrored the prejudice Andrea had fled. Just classmates, she lied again, hating herself for it. Back in the room, Oakley confronted her directly. Tell the truth for once. Do you regret leaving? Andrea's eyes welled. Every day. But regret doesn't fix the damage. They talked through the night shift, piecing together the betrayal. Andrea's brief attempt at a straight relationship that failed miserably. The family dinners where she smiled through lies, the nights she cried alone. Oakley shared her own scars, therapy, a failed rebound with another woman that ended in more heartbreak. You weren't just my girlfriend, Andrea. You were my future. The raw honesty cracked Andrea's defenses. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the love that had never died. But dawn brought reality. The hospital board called her in. Operating on a known personal acquaintance violates policy. Explain yourself. Andrea defended her choice. Emergency, no alternatives. But the administrator warned of suspension. Outside, her phone lit up with her mother's call. People are talking, Andrea. Don't throw away everything for some old friend. The pressure cooker boiled. Andrea returned to Oakley, who was sitting up now, eyes clearer. If this costs you your job, walk away again? The challenge was clear. Andrea shook her head. Not this time. Yet doubt not. As she left for a quick break, the weight of family expectations and professional ruin pressed down. The confrontation had awakened old flames, but the price was climbing higher than she had imagined. The hospital ethics meeting dragged into the second hour. Fluorescent lights buzzing like judgmental whispers. Andrea sat rigid, defending her decision to operate. It was an emergency. Transferring her could have killed her. The panel nodded politely but probed deeper. And your prior relationship? Someone had leaked it. Probably a nosy resident who overheard the bedside talk. Andrea's stomach churned. It was years ago. Doesn't affect my judgment. But it did, and everyone knew it. Back in Oakley's room, the fallout hit immediately. They're suspending you pending review? Oakley asked, voice laced with guilt. My fault for crashing into your life again. Andrea paced, anger mixing with fear. No. My choice. But my family is losing it. Mom called 3 times already, demanding I distance myself for my reputation. Their argument escalated, old wounds reopening like fresh incisions. Oakley accused. You betrayed me then, and now you're letting them do it again? Fight for us this time. Andrea shot back, voice rising despite the thin walls. It's not that simple. I've built a career here, loans paid, respect earned. Coming out now with this scandal? The board already sees me as compromised. The betrayal cut both ways. Andrea had chosen silence before. Oakley had pushed too hard then, leading to the ghosting. Now in the sterile room they faced it head-on. Oakley reached for her hand, the touch electric after years. I never stopped loving you, even when it hurt. Andrea pulled away, tears stinging. Love isn't enough when the world hates it. My parents disowned my cousin for less. Outside, societal prejudice reared its head. A colleague cornered Andrea in the cafeteria. People are saying it's inappropriate. Lesbian drama in the OR. Bad look for the hospital. The words stung like slaps, echoing every whispered judgment from her conservative upbringing. Andrea confronted her mother via video call that night. This is my life, Mom. Oakley isn't some phase. Her mother's face hardened on screen. After all we sacrificed for you? Choose wrong and you're on your own. The ultimatum shattered something deep. Back with Oakley, the conversation turned to sacrifice. If I lose my license, what then? Andrea asked. Oakley squeezed her hand. We rebuild. Together. But only if you stop running. The decision loomed. Resign quietly or fight the review, risking public exposure of their past. Tensions peaked when Oakley's sister overheard a snippet of their talk. and confronted them both. You two were together? And you operated anyway. Betrayal layered on betrayal, forcing Andrea to defend her ethics while grappling with the moral gray area. I saved her life. That's what matters. But doubt crept in. Was it duty or unresolved love driving her? As Oakley improved enough for discharge planning, Andrea faced the mirror in the locker room. The woman who had sacrificed everything for approval now stood at a crossroads. The price of truth was steep: career, family ties, reputation. But the cost of silence had already destroyed her once. She returned to the room, resolve hardening. I'm not leaving you again. The words felt right, but the battles ahead promised more pain than healing. Discharge day arrived with a storm of paperwork and emotional landmines. Oakley signed forms with a shaky hand, her body healing but her eyes locked on Andrea's. Come with me when I leave. We can figure this out away from here. Andrea hesitated, glancing at her phone. Another missed call from her father, no doubt echoing her mother's threats. The hospital review had escalated. A formal hearing next week? Potential license probation for the conflict breach. Colleagues avoided her in the halls, whispers of unprofessional, an agenda floating like poison. Societal judgment wasn't abstract anymore. It was in the side eyes and canceled coffee invites. I can't just walk away, Andrea whispered. My whole identity is tied to this job. If I lose it, what am I to my family? Their final bedside talk delved into the moral maze. Oakley pressed. You chose them over me before. Is this different? Andrea's voice broke as she recounted the years of pretending. Forced dates with men, holiday lies, the constant fear of being outed in a field where diversity was talk but not practice. It tore me apart. But fighting now means losing everything I worked for. Oakley nodded slowly, pain etched on her face. Then maybe we're both better off apart. Again. The words hung as a challenge, forcing Andrea to confront the ultimate sacrifice. She had saved Oakley's body, but her own soul was still bleeding from the original betrayal. Family pressure exploded that evening. Andrea's parents showed up unannounced at the hospital, cornering her in the parking lot. This scandal is everywhere online now, some nurse leaked it. End this nonsense or we're done supporting you. Her father's voice was ice. Andrea stood tall for the first time. I'm done hiding. Oakley isn't nonsense. She's the only real thing I've ever had. The confrontation left her shaking, parents storming off with ultimatums. Back inside, Oakley waited, discharged but not gone. Heard the yelling. You okay? They talked through the night in a quiet corner, unpacking every doubt. Was love worth the professional ruin? The societal stares? The family exile? Andrea's awakening came in waves, realizing her safe life had been a cage, her decisions not strength but fear. The hearing loomed, but so did a choice. Andrea drafted her resignation letter. Hands steady now. If I stay silent, I lose you forever. I've paid enough. Oakley pulled her into a gentle embrace, the first in years, sealing the moment without words. But external forces pushed back harder. A hospital leak made local news, headlines twisting their story into doctor's secret affair endangers patient. Prejudice fueled the fire, forcing them to face reporters at the exit. Andrea shielded Oakley as they left together, the weight of decisions settling. The path ahead was uncertain, jobless, estranged, exposed, but for the first time the internal conflict quieted. She had chosen, and the price was hers to pay. Weeks blurred into a new reality for Andrea and Oakley, sharing a small apartment near the lakefront as Oakley rehabbed her leg. Andrea's resignation had been accepted to avoid further scrutiny, leaving her scanning job boards while fielding judgmental calls from former mentors. You threw it all away for what? One texted. The societal backlash lingered, online comments labeling them reckless, family silence deafening. Yet in quiet moments the bond strengthened. Oakley painted again, her gallery dream reigniting, while Andrea volunteered at a free clinic, rediscovering medicine without the prestige chains. This feels right, Oakley said one evening, their hands linked on the couch. No more hiding. Andrea nodded, but the scars remained, the betrayal's echo, the moral tightrope she had walked. Confrontations didn't end. Oakley's sister visited, demanding accountability. You nearly died because of old drama. Was it worth it? Andrea faced her head-on, explaining the years of internal war. I betrayed her once out of fear. Never again. The dialogue healed fractures but not without tears. Andrea's own awakening peaked during a late-night talk. I thought duty was everything. Family, career, ethics. But love isn't a weakness. It's the only thing that survived. They debated their choices endlessly. The decision to operate, the resignation, the public coming out. Each carried a price. Lost income, strained ties, stares in public. Yet the freedom tasted sweeter than any surgical victory. As spring bloomed in Chicago, Andrea landed a modest clinic position. Oakley opened her gallery doors. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer defined them. Family pressure eased slightly with time. A tentative olive branch from her mother. Maybe we can talk. Societal prejudice still stung in small ways, but their resolve hardened. The journey had been one of constant evaluation. Right to risk career for an ex? Wrong to hide forever? The answers shifted with each reflection, proving no path was clean. In the end, Andrea stood by the window watching Oakley sketch, heart full despite the costs. The woman on the table that night had not only survived, she had saved Andrea too. Is it true or false that personal love should always override professional ethics and family expectations when lives are on the line?